Hi, welcome to this next flipped preaching video. We have a special guest. If you don't know who this is, this is Susie, my lovely wife.
Hello.
And the idea is with this, we're going to have a look at the passage that will be preached on in church on Sunday, possibly.
Okay.
So the passage is Luke 17 to 26.
Luke 6.
Luke, did I not say that?
No.
Luke 6, I'm not doing very well. I'm all, perhaps you set me on edge. Luke
That'll be a first.
Luke 6, 17 to 26. Okay, shall I just give some background stuff and then we'll have a look. So this is what's called the Sermon on the Plain. Most people are more familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew's equivalent one. And Luke kind of borrows from the same bit but cuts it out, makes it shorter. So Luke's bit isn't often referred to as much, but a lot of it's very, very similar. And this is a bit where Luke pulls together all sorts of bits of Jesus's teaching. Some of the first teaching we hear actually from Jesus. So I thought we might focus in on verse 20, which is the whole start, it's like opening line for this whole thing. And he lifted his eyes to the disciples of him and said, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God." And later on, in verse 24, we get a second chunk where the same sort of things are done again, but in reverse, in mirror image. "But woe to you, the rich ones, for you have received in full your comfort." So, first impressions, what do you make of it?
Blessed are you who are poor, mine says, for yours is the kingdom of God. I think it's quite hard for us to have any concept of true poverty, isn't it? And how on earth somebody finds blessedness in that state of, not having your needs met, not being able to feed your child, that true poverty. I think I would really struggle. We can find blessing in a sort of vague sort of simplicity, but to be truly poor, we don't have any idea what that's like.
No. And we're kind of, we're kind of unique in the fact that most of the people who would have read this were poor.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And it's not written to rich people, although it did. You've got this extra woes bit later.
Yeah. Who is he talking to there? The same crowd.
It's a bit tricky. We don't know. This isn't the main sort of purpose, but that the woes section 24, 25, 26 is written in a very different style, and it's not in Matthew's version, and it doesn't sound like Luke. And there's a theory that this is added in later on.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a bit clunky, doesn't really work, and
there's quite a bit of that cutting and pasting.
There is. But it's certainly, I said that this would have been read by people who were poor, but this bit's obviously targeted at people who were rich, so they must have realised there were some rich followers. In the early church, people expected Jesus to come back in a generation. They expected to come back really soon.
Oh, okay.
So their kind of attitude to wealth was kind of tempered by that. He thought Jesus is probably coming back next year, so
oh, right.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But Luke is writing quite later for a richer audience, and Jesus hasn't come back in a generation, so
he's putting a more relevant twist on it.
Starting to make it more.
Oh, okay.
Possibly. So blessed are those who are poor.
Is it poor sort of physically or poor in spirit? I think some translations, don't they say poor in spirit?
Matthew says.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the differences. In Matthew's version, it is poor in spirit, as in kind of spiritually poor. And he and again, in the other sort of things, he spiritualizes all the other things, but Luke makes it no, it's about people who are poor and
Physically
hungry,
poor.
physically. And again, perhaps that's because he was writing to a wealthy audience. The people who were poor in the original early versions didn't need to be told they were poor.
Okay.
They were,
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because it doesn't seem to be blessed to be poor.
No.
I can see that it could be, woeful to be rich and be self-satisfied and to satisfy in your wealth. I can see how that could separate you from God.
Yeah.
And I know how that feels.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in my scrapbooking world, it's, blessed are you when you've got loads of followers and you're successful and you're, that's the good life in that sense, in a worldly sense. So, seeing poverty as a blessing. I mean, what does it mean for yours is the kingdom of God? What does it mean, do you think, to possess the kingdom of God? Is that just you're a step closer to what's true?
Maybe, yeah. Some of the commentators think that it's a kind of promise, it's a way of saying you'll be saved. Mm-hmm. You're suffering now, but it's okay, you will be.
Oh, right.
You will be saved.
So you could be a horrible person but be poor. And you're still okay.
Well, yeah, it does seem to be. It doesn't seem to have any clauses, does it? Unless
the state of poverty somehow brings us closer to God because there's more of a need.
Possibly. So I don't know if this is just making this passage too easy, but I wonder if there's that kind of middle is the best place to be. Like it says that the poor are blessed and can encounter God, but I don't think Jesus would want people to be starving.
No, because when you're poor, you're dependent on other people, aren't you? That's another.
Yeah, and there probably is something good about being in that state of vulnerability, but I don't think I can't imagine he would want people to be literally starving. And,
no.
I mean, he's always saying about sell your belongings and give it to the poor.
Absolutely.
And I can see the danger of being too rich and too comfortable and too. So maybe there's a kind of middle is the place to aim for, where
maybe I think there's a stickiness to money, isn't there? That woe to you who are rich, that does take you away from God. Yes. Because riches, even the first smell of money for me personally has me thinking, what can I get? It just does something quite nasty to your heart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why at birthday times, whenever I've got any spending money, I have to spend it quick because it does sort of take over your thinking, doesn't it? And
yeah.
So I mean, perhaps there is a comfortable. Didn't you say in that book about was it an Alan de Botton book about having enough that you don't get any happier?
Yeah. He said Alan de Botton's a philosopher, and he in his book on wealth or status?
Status or something, yeah, I think.
He sort of makes this idea that if you plotted happiness against the amount of money you've got, you start off in this corner here, because if you have no money then you're going to be unhappy. So a small increase in your wealth makes you much happier because you can suddenly eat, but then the line very quickly goes flat. The extra wealth, if you're here, getting more money doesn't make you more happy.
No.
You have more stuff, which might bring a little bit more short-term joy, but then you worry about it, and then you compare yourself to a different batch of people who have got even better cars or whatever, and you think, I need to have that sort of.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get caught in that trap when you've got a little bit of money.
Yeah, I think there is a wisdom, isn't there, in realising that.
Yeah.
Working it out that, hang on, this isn't making me any happier. Now I'm on this lovely holiday, but I'm worrying about my house back at home and all the things I've got. And
yeah. The way I get around this with, I don't know if I've got lots of things or not really, but with the things that I do have, like guitars, that's my sort of thing. I've got relatively few compared to most guitarists.
They're everywhere. No, they're not.
But I quickly, I realised that I was continually buying one and then thinking, what else can I get next, and then go for another, and then, and I sort of, and I've not got this nailed, but I realised quite early on in the process that if I could just get one that I felt was better than me, so it was
Better than you.
yeah, so a guitar that I wouldn't ever think
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I need a better one.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then that will kind of do me. So I never think I need a better one than that.
No,
that's
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I try to get to. So I've got stuff that's better than me that I'm never going to outgrow. I once had an acoustic guitar that it just felt so uncomfortable because I kind of sold all my stuff and bought this one guitar, a Loudon for anyone who knows guitars. And you're laughing.
No, it's fine. They're interested.
They are. It's just fascinating stuff. Perhaps I'll do a separate video. But this one guitar I had, and it was it was amazing. It looked beautiful. It sounded way better than any other guitar I've ever played. But I was a bit scared to take it out, partly because I didn't want to scratch it, and partly because I didn't want people to know how much this guitar cost. It just felt too good. So I actually sold that and bought one that wasn't as good, which is the one I've currently got. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's...
But on that note, thinking of... What's Kitty doing in there? Kit. With your t-shirts, I mean that's worth mentioning on this, isn't it? I mean they're not the best you could buy, are they? You're making those yourself because... Is that relevant? I think it's relevant,
possibly.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Where this is, I guess another thing you have to buy is clothes, guitars and clothes.
Life essentials.
And I made a decision. I can't think when it was about 13 years ago. We heard a speaker called Shane Claiborne speak at Greenbelt, and he was talking about sweatshops and how he makes his own clothes because he didn't want anyone. A child in slavery to be making his clothes. And it really struck me, and I thought, well, I'm going to only buy fair trade clothes from now on.
Which you did, didn't you?
Which I have pretty much. So all of these clothes come from companies who sort of guarantee that their workers are paid fairly. But recently, Kitty got a sewing machine for Christmas. And I've always had in the back of my head that maybe I could make my own clothes like Shane Claiborne does. So I had a go. So this t-shirt actually was one I made. So yeah, it helps me appreciate the things more as well because I can now
the work that
goes into it. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, and you're respecting the poor in the process.
Yeah, but you still do wonder whether Jesus actually wants us to actually, give it all away and
be radical.
Go and live in.
Yeah, see, I wonder that.
Go and live in camp. Shane Claiborne, went and worked with Mother Teresa and worked in a leper colony for ages.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're just sort of this idea of buying a good guitar that will last you, whether that's just a bit of a middle class cop out.
Yeah. That crossed my mind when we were moving here to start this ministry life. The idea that we could sell our house and do something quite radical with that money. That it did cross our minds, didn't it? This is quite a big chunk of money, and then the practical part of your brain kicks in a kind of, well, who's paying for Letland University then? And it's just one of those grey areas, isn't it?
Yeah.
You look like you finished. You said enough.
No, don't imply that.
We're done.
Well, I don't think I have much more.
No.
Because it's one of those ones where Jesus does make these, radical, completely world upside down claims.
Yeah.
And this is one of those, and it's probably meant to unsettle you.
Yeah, and you've got to work through it.
Yeah, but he's a God of grace as well.
Yeah.
And it's not, salvation is not dependent on being poor. He's gracious to the rich too.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If you'd like, no one ever does, but if you'd like to write a comment, say what you think, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.